Good afternoon. I'm Christopher Starling. I am the curator of the Inner Life Archive 2.0, a Black Queer Archive. I'm supporting Corey in the Recognize Our Pride page with a highlight and celebrate Black people who are queer, who are part of the Divine Nine. I'm in conversation today with Andrea. How you doing, Andrea?
Doing good. How are you doing, Chris?
Good. I feel good. Just tired, in fact, but tired. I want to first thank you for being willing to share your story. I hope it allows somebody to get a witness. I hope that we can be your witness and get free by seeing how you've navigated your life.
Absolutely. No problem at all.
So, Andrea, how do you identify yourself?
How do I identify myself? So I identify myself as a woman, she, her, as just a Black, queer, lesbian woman.
Dope. Walk me through your journey with identifying with that community, with the title, with the terms.
So it definitely was a process for me in terms of, I consider myself to be more, masculine identified, still a woman, but masculine identified. So I went through, when I was younger, went through identifying myself as a dom or, different things like that, things that I do not consider myself today. As I've matured, certain terms and labels just don't do it for me. So I'm just Andrea. I'm a woman, and definitely a proud queer person.
So talk to me about your inviting and coming out story. So who supported you in this journey becoming a Black lesbian, a Black queer proud lesbian?
I could just say I'm so happy to say, my experience has been so supportive. As a kid, a lot of us, don't necessarily know day one. We kind of go through a process and a journey, and that's definitely what I went through. But my mother, who is absolutely my best friend, and someone who I'm extremely close with, she always was supportive, and I think she probably knew well before I did.
Okay.
But it was extremely important for me that her and I were aligned. So, when I was younger and, dating, earlier when I was dating men and then transitioning into, those older years, about early 20s, that's when I really started to realize myself, like accepting me for what I was. And at that point, kind of hard to hide. I'm my mother's only child. So, she would see women coming to the house every now and then. So I think she put two and two together. It wasn't until, I got into my first serious relationship that I think it really kind of hit her. And she told me later on, I didn't notice anything. She was just purely supportive, but she did tell me that she went through her own kind of process and journey in terms of, having that kind of hit home, because I think in my family, I'm one of the first, queer people, I guess you can say that's out. But now, it's amazing looking at that journey. I have a partner now, I have a daughter, and, our family is just wonderful. So, and my entire family has been nothing but accepting. And then also my friend circle as well. So that story is a little bit different. I only have, my friend circle has always been pretty small. But my best friend, who I grew up with, and, shout out to her, she's an AKA actually, Nikki. That story is a little bit interesting because of how she found out. She found out through another person. So we had, I just always remember, because I was in college and we had that conversation. It was awkward because, that's not how I identified before. So, but even that, just remembering that conversation so many years ago, Nikki, she was just extremely supportive. Like, she was like, if that's what you want to do, I'm here for you. So, absolutely, I'm just happy to say that I have that support system.
Where did you grow up at?
I'm sorry, to say that one more time.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in PG County, DC area. Yep.
And you used to live in DMV?
Yeah, I grew up in Bowie, Maryland. Now I'm in Baltimore County with my partner, but primarily grew up in Bowie, Maryland. Yep.
Dope.
Born in DC.
Dope. So what was the black lesbian scene in DC like?
Growing up in DC or growing up in PG County was great. I think I had a typical childhood. Definitely fulfilling. A lot of friends. Just yeah, I think I had a really good upbringing in PG County.
Dope. Where do you feel the most safe as a black queer person?
I think when I hear that question, it makes me think: are there places that I don't feel safe in? And I think I always have second thoughts, I guess, when I'm entering spaces that are kind of have the older black crowd. Because sometimes it can be an antiquated way of thinking. So if I'm stepping in with my wife and my child, let's say, my uncle invites me to his church or something, not something that's typical, but I'm just saying, throwing that out there. Maybe in the back of my mind, I might be thinking, that some folks may not like what they see. Mm-hmm. But in terms of me feeling safe, honestly, based upon my experience, and I appreciate the fact that a lot of people don't have my experience, because I have friends, who are queer, who absolutely don't have my experience. But I think my mentality on safeness is shaped around the fact that I have had so much support. So I can step into rooms that I can kind of know deep down that some folks may not accept who I am. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. As long as, individuals treat me with respect, then that's exactly what they're going to get back. So,
yeah, most people talk about like being in queer environments at the club or in community with gay people. Some people talk about like their grandmother's house. Like people answer the question all kind of ways over the last several interviews. So it's cool.
Yeah, and I'm really thinking about times where I did not feel safe, and I think where I'm at now, I'm 40 years old. I'm very comfortable in my skin, so it's really hard for me to think of things in a recent time frame. When I was younger, though, that's a whole other story. So when I was younger,
the question wasn't wrapped up in deficit. It's like where most people talk about where they do feel safe at, context to community, their home, with their friends, with their partners, like exactly. So it's so that you feel so comfortable everywhere you go, so free everywhere you go. That's dope.
I mean, and absolutely, I would say family, absolutely, like my mom, my dad, obviously, my partner and I, and our child, and both of our parents are very supportive. So I feel absolutely safe around them. And yeah, in terms of when I was younger, just a contrast, because I wasn't as comfortable in terms of my identity. So yeah, I would definitely not feel safe. But then I was just, under that cover of kind of mystery, because I wasn't out. So, but now being completely out, I enjoy being that. I enjoy being clockable, honestly. I enjoy being that face. I enjoy being that representation.
Yeah. So how long have you been out? Completely out?
Wow.
Because the way you tell the story, it felt like it feels like you've been who you are forever. Mm-hmm. But now it feels like you have it kind of grew, evolved, and changed over time.
So it did. I would say officially, because my coming out story is kind of all kind of choppy. I mainly align it to my mom, who, as I mentioned, she's always been this supportive. But I would say I've been out since like my early 20s, since I'd say about 2021.
It's a long, so 20 years, though.
Yeah.
So what aspect of being black and queer are you most proud of?
I just like, looking at like where I'm at in my career. I'm in leadership now, within the government. And I mean, it's nothing. I'm used to being the only, the only Black manager in the room. That's common. But on top of that, I really do enjoy being the only Black queer person in the room. I enjoy being that representation. And one of the things I do enjoy about my agency is we have a really good queer support. We have a group, and they, for instance, they kind of do things like this. They spotlight things in June. They did a spotlight of me last year. So from that perspective, I really do enjoy it, because I think we don't really know how we impact people, right? So I think, and not just this other queers, I think also queer people, I think also in terms of straight people as well. When I come to work, I love talking about my child and my wife. I mean, I go out my way to talk about them, and because I want people to understand that things, our families may look different, my lifestyle might be different, and maybe something you're not used to, but we're fundamentally the same,
Yeah.
And I think, and you never, like I said, you never know. There may be people, even older people, who are still struggling with some identity things within themselves. And I think when you step into any room confident, especially if you're successful and you're just who you are, and you're just, you're not apologizing about that, I think that can be impactful. So that's something that I always try to do. And like I said, definitely proud to be that representation.
Also very normal too, right? It's to be married and happy and fulfilled and sharing that with people is very normal. Most people
Absolutely.
And the kids talk about all the time too, so it's very normal.
Same thing, yeah, exactly.
So you are a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Talk to me about your journey becoming a Zeta. Where did you join that, and why Zeta?
So I joined as Sigma Psi Zeta in PG County in 2013. Actually, my line sisters and I are going to celebrate our 10-year Zeta anniversary tomorrow. So we have some things planned.
Happy early anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. It's wild. It seems like yesterday. I can't believe it was 10 years ago. But that journey, I can just start off with, the whole reason I wanted to join. So the first thing is, it was definitely a family thing. My Aunt Judy was a Zeta. She came out of Johnson C. Smith a long time ago. Forget the year. May she rest in peace. She passed away about 3 years ago. But she's a major reason why. Her being somebody I looked up to all my life. Brilliant woman. And also one of my cousins, my first cousins, Kevin, he is a Sigma. So I growing up seeing that, in my Aunt Judy being a Zeta, her husband is a Kappa. So just seeing D9 and things as a kid and growing up kind of made me interested. So by the time I went to college, I did my first year at UMES, and then I transferred to Towson. I wanted that opportunity to join and just didn't get it because they weren't accepting anyone. Mm-hmm. So, but I still pursued it. And by the time, roughly 10 years ago, I found Sigma Psi Zeta, and I just really enjoyed the energy. Like they just seem like home, seem like family. So
how has it been being a married out, visibly queer woman in Zeta?
That also has been great. Again, just kind of like my family and friends. And there really was no conversation behind it. It was, when I joined, I was single. I think maybe shortly after joining is when I met my partner. My partner is a Delta.
That's dope.
Yeah. It's been nothing but, like I said, acceptance with my line sisters, with my organization. They have not treated me any differently, and definitely embrace my partner and my daughter as well. So that has been a great journey. And of course, I've come across other queer Zetas as well. So I think that experience has been great. Now, I do want to pinpoint that when you always have doubts, and because I just want to be honest. I know 10 years ago when I was going through the motions of joining and things like that, I did wonder in the back of my mind, if that would be accepted. If, you know, if I came to an event with the woman, how would that be, you know, received? So, you know, you do tend to have angst, you know, coming into these organizations a lot of times, again, because you never know, you may have, you know, older sorors who have different mentalities, right?
Mhm.
So that definitely was something that went through my mind initially years ago, but I'm just so glad to say that have not experienced anything, you know, negative at all. Nothing but just, you know, welcome arms and acceptance.
Is there community amongst queer Zetas?
And I have to be transparent. Since my daughter's 5 years, I've not been as active. But
Mm.
I have come across some queer sorors and formed kind of a community. Not anything um probably doesn't look the way I would want it to look right now.
How would you want it to look?
Man, because I just want to be, I want to be a lot more active than what I've have been in the past few years, and that's one of my goals. I'm not just saying that in for this interview, that is one of my goals.
No, I'm curious.
No, so in terms of how I would like it to look, would be something that's way more involved, something to where I'm linking up, you know, in person with folks and really establishing, you know, connections and things. Again, something that this year and beyond, I want to make more of an effort to do that, not just with my, you know, my queer sorors, but in general the organization. So
Yeah, I have I might agree, but I have a lot of friends who haven't felt shiny for a long time. And it's a financial cost as well as a unworthiness feeling around like not feeling shiny after they cross, so they're not as active. And for when I grew up, active meant just being around, right? Like it wasn't necessarily meant, you don't have to necessarily be financial to be active that way. But a lot of people who feel that they can't afford to be financial don't show up to anything or aren't around or available. And I'm like, that's not what the point was. But
yeah, and it's easy for folks to get like that. Like I have so many great you know, folks around me, from my partner and my close friends. It's so easy to get in that mold. That's why I'm trying to force myself out of it. I have a local chapter here that I think maybe a year or so I went to a couple of events. So I'm just trying to keep that going. And because when I first joined, you know, I think a lot of us can say that I was very active. I was always at events and, you know, leading committees and things like that. I want to get back to that. So
dope. What's one thing Zeta could do to be more inclusive for queer members?
so this is just one thing I'll mention. When I 10 years ago joining my organization, and I was looking back on some pictures, and it was funny because my wife was looking at them. She was laughing because I had a dress on. I don't wear dresses very often. And I look back on it, and I did it because it was the expected thing, and it wasn't something I complained about. But I always wonder if I was to join today, how that would look, because that's not something that I would be open to. And it's not as if anything has changed. My identity is not changed. It's just as I get older, it's just certain things I'm just not open to doing. And at 40, I'm just don't know if I'm gonna put on a skirt or anything, you know? So in that way, and I'm not at all saying that that was forced upon me or anything. So I want to make that clear. But I just would hope, and I think that this likely is something that my organization is doing, that they're considering those things for folks, for queer folks who are joining, who obviously may be more masculine identified, may not be the type to wear a dress, to wear a skirt, that they're open to that, they're open-minded, and that they understand. And so many different organizations, in the government where I work, to private, you know, industry sectors, there's this big diversity, equity, inclusion movement. And I could definitely see my organization getting on board with that. So based upon my experience with them. So, but that's the only thing I can say. That's for all organizations, really. It's just to just make sure that, you know, you're coming into, you know, new members that you experience, and not making any assumptions, because a lot of us can. I mean, I think when I joined, my hair wasn't like this. My hair was down, and my aesthetic was a bit different. So, maybe folks can glean things from mannerisms, but a lot of folks didn't necessarily do that, because trust me, I've had conversations with old coworkers and things who would be surprised when I told them, that I was queer. So yeah, I think that would just be one tidbit for my organization and all the D9 organizations, is to just make sure that you're being mindful, because I think there's a lot of things that we can do. And even us, queer folks, is we have to understand we have a trans community out here as well. We don't do it intentionally, but there's some things that we do and that we may not be mindful of. So I would just say, just watch out for things like that.
Yeah, I also wonder and worry about how safe it is to include people who are trans. Because yes, maybe in certain areas, certain chapters may be more progressive or more safe, but everywhere in D9 isn't safe for people who are trans, let alone the ritual or either way dress, like whatever those things are. Just in terms of like physical safety, I'm not sure people will be safe who
I'm
are
not sure either.
trans, visibly queer that way.
And that's unfortunate. We have a long ways to go in that
Yeah.
area, a very long ways to go. But absolutely, that's a whole other discussion. But I just think that because I don't want people to think, I'm always transparent about the fact that just because you are queer doesn't mean that you don't have some lessons to learn and things to be educated on. So even myself, there's some things that I think I try to be mindful of as well, when I'm at work, when I'm, things associated with my organization as well.
So, and I think I have a new question since your 10-year anniversary. What are you reflecting on sitting with as you reflect on 10 years of being a Zeta?
I'm reflecting on kind of what I mentioned is where I'm going in the organization. So, like I said, when I first joined, like many of us, I was really active in the beginning, and then I kind of dropped off. Life happened, family happened, demanding career happened, and then you find yourself being less active. So what I really just kind of like, I've made some major strides in my career, right? I'm a very career focused person. I would like to add that type of value to Zeta. So let that be something I can do within the next 10 years, is really make an impact through Zeta, the same way I have in my own career. And that's really what I'm reflecting on, because it's a reminder too, as I see my line sisters tomorrow, of the organization, of, me bringing my talents and, adding, the things that I have to offer to my organization. So is this really a feeling of really wanting to kind of reconnect for me?
Dope. Sure. So this is the end of our conversation. I want to thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a witness. Where can people follow you at? What are you working on that we can support you with?
Oh, sure. So you guys can find me on Instagram. That's probably the social media account that I'm the most active on. And I'm at ADW Speaks on Instagram. So yeah, that's where you guys can find me.
Cool.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. And I love what Recognize Your Pride is doing. I think it's phenomenal.